The time to indict is almost up. Move your ass, Washington. Katie Porter tries to change her image. Guess what? It doesn't work. Big time. And fascinating, the story of everything. Yeah, how about that? Welcome to the Jay Sheldon Show. It is a Wednesday. We are live on Rumble and YouTube, and we thank you for popping in and joining us. We appreciate you being here a lot. It goes a long way towards getting the word out there, letting folks know we're here, and thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right. You know what? I do have the Fauci story coming up. But I didn't put this in the mix today, and I should have. Danny, good morning. I know we talk about Angel Studios on here. Another good one is Thank You, Dr. Fauci Must See. I will check that out. All right. This is a weird one, and there have been growing reports all over the internet, so much so to the fact that I think this is actually true. As you know, Trump said he was going to release the Department of War, release all the files, or as most as they can, about unidentified flying objects, or UAPs, as they have to politically correct call them these days. But that's not the story that I want to talk about briefly before we get under the meat of our sandwich here. A lot of claims, are reporting and exploding online that the U.S. government has been holding secret meetings in secret locations with pastors to prepare them for possible alien disclosure. Marilyn, good morning. Critics are now asking kind of a disturbing question. Why would the same government accused of hiding information for decades and decades and decades suddenly care about preparing Christians spiritually for what might be coming next? The firestorm erupted after a very prominent televangelist claimed pastors were warned about UFO reptile-like creatures and materials allegedly not from our planet. The skeptics say it sounds a lot less like transparency and more like psychological conditioning, maybe. But a lot of other people fear that this could very well become the perfect setup for mass deception. Engineered fear, maybe even a staged event designed to reshape how millions understand reality itself. There is a report from Z Media before the so-called alien disclosure narrative goes mainstream. Everybody pretends this came out of nowhere, but it's interesting to say the very least.
The US government is reportedly holding secret meetings with pastors across the United States, preparing them for alien disclosure. Televangelist Perry Stone has claimed a super secret meeting took place with many pastors in a secret state where secret government officials confirmed to them that revelations about aliens and spaceships and reptile-like creatures among us will soon occur. He claims that this super secret meeting took place, we suppose, in an effort to help the pastors prepare their congregations for the government suddenly telling us the truth about aliens. I'll play you a portion of his video and then dive into a little bit more of what he said. We want to say here, we will not take him out of context. He raised concerns about people doing that in a longer clip that we saw. So we will make every effort today to not do that. Take a listen.
I had a friend that sent me a text message. I was in a meeting, a weekend meeting, preaching Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And he said, Perry, can you give me a call? I have some information that has come to my attention. Of course, when a friend of yours does that you know quite well, you have no idea what information they're talking about. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but there were a large number of pastors that had been invited to go to a certain state to hear some men in the United States government and others share with them a concern that they had. And this particular man, and I'll not name him, and then we may end up doing some teachings with him or having an event at his church. He has a great church. But he said, Perry, what they're about to release, from what we're hearing, there's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released.
So, there you go. Absolutely fascinating. Now, I am a Christian. Make no secret about that. I know a lot of our audience is Christian. Let me just ask you, if the government came out and said, there are aliens, there are several species of aliens, the grays, the little guys with the big heads and the big eyes, and reptilian-looking aliens, and we have spacecraft that are not from this earth, which we are trying to back engineer, would that affect your faith? Now, quite a while ago, when they were thinking about disclosure, about telling people the truth, it brought together a group of scientists and pastors and ministers and folks from different walks of life, and they gave them a list of things and had them rate what would happen if they released the information. And at the end of the day, all of these scientists and pastors and ministers and things basically said, no, you should not. So they didn't. And consequently, we've all been in the dark for a long time. I don't frankly think that it would affect my faith at all. I believe that God created the heavens and the earth. I believe the heavens are broad and wide and big enough that certainly several other species of, not humans, but life would exist out there. It seems just a reasonable assumption. Would not affect my faith in any way, shape, or form. Danny says reptilian looking. Now I'm convinced it's Pelosi. I'm trying to be serious here. Anyway, they have brought these pastors together and said, we're looking at putting this information out there, and we think that your congregations should get ready for whatever questions they may have. So hopefully these pastors will be able to deal with any questions. And I think, frankly, the older Christian people, I'm 68 years old, so God knows I'm in part of that group. I think for the most part, they are the ones, if any, that might have a bit of a problem with it. But even the Catholic Church, the Vatican, has come out and acknowledged the idea that there may very well be aliens. So they've made that statement. I think the younger, generations, people 60 and below or 50 and below, they have a lot less problem with this. I just think so, because they've grown up in a time like they've grown up in. Would it bother me? No. Would it affect my faith? Not at all. Not one little iota. And I don't probably think it would affect yours either, but it'd be interesting. I just have a feeling that we are going to know something before the end of the year, possibly even sooner. I just have that feeling. I hope so. I have always been a ufologist. I've been fascinated by the subject. I truly believe in them. I think they're real. I think they are non-human and from other places in the universe that God created. So, interesting. We are living in interesting times, friends. Very, very interesting times. All right, there is pressure on the DOJ to prosecute that Joseph Mengele of the U.S., otherwise known as Anthony Fauci. And that pressure is growing after advisors, one of his closest advisors has been indicted. And there are only days left to charge him with these COVID lies. Statute of limitations on lying to Congress runs out for this guy on the 11th of this month. That's what, it's the 6th today, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 5 days. That's it. Something's got to be done. The indictment of Fauci, former advisor David Morans, which happened yesterday, revived a lot of calls for the Justice Department to prosecute Fauci himself, allegedly lying to Congress about funding risky research in China, before the COVID-19 pandemic. Just 2 weeks remain when this article was written. However, now it's 5 days. The deadline for the statute of limitations, May 11th, to indict Fauci for denying under oath he funded gain-of-function experiments that modified bat coronaviruses in the same city, strangely enough, where the pandemic happened, where it started. Now, Morans was 78 years old, charged with 1 count of conspiracy, 2 counts of destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, and 2 counts of concealment, removal, or mutilation of records relating to the origins of COVID-19. He faces up to 51 years in prison. Critics say Fauci, who's 85 years old, bears the most responsibility, and man, is that absolutely true. This man is the scum of the earth. He literally killed millions of people. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Fauci. You ought to be hauled into court on your knees and beg for mercy. Trump said in a phone interview March 31st, he intended to look into Fauci's status. And Republicans say they believe acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is seeking the role permanently, might be willing to test Trump's assertion that former President Joe Biden's preemptive auto pen pardons, including this scumball Fauci, are completely invalid. 99% of this country has no idea who this Morans guy is. It's Fauci they're going to blame for one of the worst government catastrophes in the history of America. And so the test is Fauci. The Morans indictment is great. We applaud that. But there are a lot of people out here who want to see Fauci held to account for all the damage he wrought and all the people he killed. Howell, whose group sent the Justice Department a draft indictment for Morans last year, believes the advisor's actions were closely linked to his boss, Fauci. Fauci lied about one of the most damaging events in American history, he said routinely, and was behind a massive cover-up of the key factors. Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky, Fauci allegedly lied to him. We've been looking, he says, Rand Paul says, we've been looking through a lot of information on this for the last year or so. The Trump admin's been much more forthcoming than the Biden admin ever was. On Fauci's case, Paul said, we think lying to Congress is one felony. He said that yesterday. We also think destroying federal records and advising others to destroy federal records is also a felony. So I think there's opportunity, says Rand Paul. There's a vast, both organized and unorganized conspiracy to cover up the fact the U.S. government was funding the research which led directly to the pandemic. Trump said in December Biden was so mentally diminished he was either unable to authorize auto pen pardons or that his staff did all this and he had no idea. He had no knowledge of it, which set the stage for these potential legal test cases, which ought to go forward. Do it, Blanche. Do not hesitate. Show some chutzpah. To determine how valid these pardons are, you'd have to indict somebody who's been pardoned. Certainly when it comes to Dr. Fauci, it is well worth the challenge. This man needs to be in prison for absolutely the rest of his life. There's just no doubt about it. None. Lock him away, throw away the key. People, ordinary people like you and me, our moms, our dads, our children in the hospital, we can't go see them. Some of them dying, we can't be with them in their last moments because of what this scum did. Disgusting. Looking back at our first story here, talking about how disclosure about UFOs and aliens, would it affect you as a Christian? Denny says, it would not affect my faith. As you said, God created the universe. I've always thought there was life out there while believing that in God, so it just fits together for me. Yes, indeed. That's, like I said, I couldn't agree more. All right, black voters, guess what? They have been pieced out. They have been pieced out of the Democratic Party. Legacy media is now being forced to report on this reality. In the more pearl-clutching over the SCOTUS Calais decision category, the latest lightning bolt to hit legacy corporate media, black voters, particularly young blacks, are leaning towards the GOP. Oh yeah, you know it's bound to happen. Welcome to the party, pals. Break out the smelling salts for those who have fallen out, proclaiming it simply cannot be. Right of center media, particularly our contributors, been documenting this shift for years. Apex realized in the election of Trump back in 2024 with black support at record highs. Back in 2024, the wild card in the election was the black vote. Trump made gains in the black community, especially among black men. He was at 11% in 2020. He got 25% in 2024. That wild card, well, guess what, folks? Now it's a trend. Legacy media clutching their pearls. They have no idea what to do with it. Oh my God, how are we going to report this? A generational and structural shift is completely decoupling black identity from the Democrat Party, which they have had for years and decades. Transforming a once reliable voting bloc into a whole lot of political free agents, and the GOP is very uniquely positioned to exploit exactly that. What is truly smacking their gobs? The Hitler racist Trump is not just precipitating the change. He continues to gain ground in approval among black Americans. Trump is making gains with black voters despite posting racist videos, using racist rhetoric, advancing policies critics say erase slavery history, weaken voting rights. Axios, far, way left Axios. Recent data shows breaks in the strong black support for Democrats going all the way back to John F. Kennedy. And this is 1960s presidential run. Barack Obama, of course, his historic win in 2008. Trump is besting light bringer Obama. Oh yeah, that's got to be shaking the entire Democrat establishment to its core. Trump is benefiting less from persuasion and more from a changing electorate. It's younger, it's more diverse, less tied to traditional party loyalties. Senior advisor at New America said this: the numbers we're seeing now are higher than they were 8 years ago, but black voters were a different kind of voter coming out of the Obama presidency. He says when you detach partisan identity from racial identity, you get more black voters willing to take a chance on a Republican. That's not a realignment. It is more political free agents. And the legacy media and the Democrats have assumed for decades. They don't even think about it. They just assume that they own the black vote. And sadly, many blacks, even those who don't vote, do very little to disabuse them of that notion. We have a long argument that blacks are not a monolith. Main issue, Democrats and Republicans have marginalized, they've ignored, they've taken advantage of certain voters for the bright, shiny objects of either identity politics or the donor class. Trump, who spoke towards restoring the success of all Americans, black, white, brown, whatever. He also recognized how both parties had forgotten about certain voting blocks. In his inaugural address, remember this? He took the time to give a shout out to blacks and Hispanics who gave them their votes. So the days of taking votes for granted, sorry, Democrats, you're pretty much done. The Calais decision, which limited how Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act can be administered, thoroughly restricted racial gerrymandering in electoral maps, changed the landscape, brought back the actual competition rather than baked-in outcomes. So the legacy media, corporate media, all being forced to pay very attention they don't want to pay to actual voting patterns. And you know what? They finally discovered that the black vote has escaped the Democrats' grasp. Sorry, Democrats. So bad, so sad. You lose. Bye now. Morons. Every last stinking one of them. Danny, talking back to the Fauci story, I lost a good neighbor karaoke buddy from COVID. Hit his respiratory system and took him. He was a great man and a firefighter. Wow. some people just should not be on X. They should probably just leave social media alone when you don't get it. The foreign affairs minister from Iran has a meltdown over X check marks. You know, if you look at my X account, the Jay Sheldon Show, I think it's not without the, you'll see I'm verified account. And the Iranian regime is just chock full of absolutely delusional officials. But the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs spokesman, Esmail Baghaei, B-A-G-H-A-E-I, Baghaei, I guess. Anyway, he may be vying for the crown for the most ridiculous remark. I think we should give it to him. He was the guy who reported on, we reported on this earlier, he claimed that Iran was a superpower, similar to the United States. Now, that was pretty bad. And then Baghaei was throwing a fit about X removing Iranian regime accounts check marks. He says, X has now removed the blue check from Iran's MFA spokesperson's account after stripping the ministry and ministers' verified badges, despite our full Premium Plus payments. This arbitrary de-verification fits X's pattern of selective censorship and American digital piracy. Oh, man. He says it's all aimed at suppressing the truth about the U.S. illegal war against Iran. Nice try, buddy. Aw, boo-hoo. Cry more. I thought you were a superpower. You're complaining about a check mark? A blue check mark? You're lucky you're even allowed on X at all. We have something in this country, though, called free speech. So there you go. You're there. Shut up. What is truly offensive about this is that he's throwing a fit about a blue check mark while the regime has cut off the internet for regular Iranian people. They have no internet access. More than 2 months now. That's harmed people and businesses greatly in the process. Cutting them off from friends, family, it's hurt the economy, which doesn't help the regime. But the regime likely believes that they're stopping people who might want to protest or communicate against the government. Now, if you're posting from Iran now, you're either connected to the regime or you're sneaking the internet, maybe through a VPN, with what is likely a very costly workaround that could very well get you in very deep trouble. Sana Ibrahimi Ladin posts, I'm Iranian. Your disgusting terrorist regime just shut down the internet for 90 million people for 65 days straight, like the barbaric cowards you are. You have cut Iranians off from the world. Families can't speak. Friends are gone. People are suffering and losing everything. Jim Hansen, X has a policy against continued pushing of disinformation. You guys make Baghdad Bob look like a truth teller. This is one of those guys running the risk, posting against the regime from a VPN inside of Iran, putting literally his life on the line. Taunting Bagay, he said, "I got a blue tick, you don't, you loser, go cry." I don't know the official reason for removing their blue check mark, but repeatedly posting false and fake information can trigger penalties. Looks like you got one, pal. Oh, so sad. Elon Musk, who owns X, maybe offer him a deal. He'll give him back the blue check mark if they free the internet for the Iranian people. There's an idea. How about it, Elon? Now, they won't do it, but it would further show exactly how hypocritical they are. Complaining about a blue check mark. I don't have my blue check mark. What an idiot. Speaking of idiots, it's amazing how it all ties together, ain't it? We've done several stories about this woman. You got to know who she is by now. The absolute cringe fest person, Katie Porter, running for governor of California. God help us all. She tried to change her image with a new ad and interviews. And the whole thing pretty much went south. There she is, just in case you need a little reminder of who this moron is. Oh, apparently it is a tight battle for the governor's race in California. One of the Democrat Katie Porter's problems is that she is known for having tantrums, and boy, is she ever. She's hit the news multiple times for her reported temper, allegedly pouring mashed potatoes on the head of her ex-husband, yelling at a staffer during a video call to "get out of my effing shot." There's some very bad language here, so be prepared. Just a fair warning. Exclusive from Mel Mason on Katie Porter, who berates a staffer and says, "get out of my effing shot," while recording a video with the Biden administration, in case you need reminding.
Ready for stat number 2?
I am.
All right. $632. $632, which is how much you save in fuel and maintenance costs when you replace your traditional car with an EV, with an electric vehicle. So I lease a Chevy Bolt. It is the best car that I have ever owned. I just plug it into the garage, 3-hole prong plug, and I never have to go to the gas station.
That's awesome. And $632 is real money. And I know here at UCI, we have a National Fuel Center Research Center, and they're also doing work on how to make electric vehicles affordable, including for low and moderate income people, working moms, single moms like me, people who really could benefit from an extra $632 in their pocket. And it's also not just the individual savings, but it's also the total savings for our economy. So I'm on the oversight committee, you might know, and that is where we did a study recently this fall in September. And what it showed is if we don't electrify our transportation sector, that we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution and other problems. And the state could lose. Get out of my fucking shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot.
What a pleasant woman. What an absolute gem. Could you imagine if this was your mother? And now, trying to make things better, Porter has released a new ad that she hopes will remake her image. She's just like you. she knows what you're going through because she also pushes a shopping cart, has an old car, and hates President Donald Trump. The absolute cringe.
I'm Katie Porter, and I'm not like most people who run for governor. I actually get what you're going through. A single mom of 3 kids, I know what it's like to push the shopping cart. My minivan has almost 200,000 miles. I have a grown kid who may soon be living on my couch. To give Californians what they need, it's going to take standing up to Donald Trump, calling out greedy corporations, and stepping on some toes along the way. Now, could you guys please get out of my shot?
Yeah, that ain't gonna work, Katie. Sorry, the damage is done. Oh, by the way, she wants you to know she makes fun of herself by putting in a reference to that infamous video I just played for you, Get Out of My Effing Shot. She even adds a laugh track. Did you hear that? It's not really laughing, it's a laugh track. They put that in post. So we don't miss the fact that it's supposed to be funny. Yeah. Then to the tired hate Trump and the rich pitch, which produces nothing that ever helped anyone. Porter even spoke to a reporter about how she included that part about getting out of her shot to show people that she had a sense of humor and that she could change. Pro tip, Katie, that wasn't funny, not even close. And when they see the constructed ad versus the unconstructed viral moments of your temper, what do you think people are going to believe? Here's a hint, Katie, not the ad. She also missed this moment, which doesn't help with her temperament questions. Again, her focus attacked Trump, claiming everything he touches turns to crap. Except, of course, Katie said it a little more eloquently.
Katie, before we go, any other issues, blind spots that you think maybe not be getting enough attention that you think it's important for our audience to know?
Yeah, I mean, I would just mention 2 things. One, I've wanted to tell you this for a long time, but I came on Midas Touch a long time ago when I think when I first got ready to launch the campaign. And I've actually made a lot of references to the Midas Touch during this campaign. And what I always say to people is, I get this question about Donald Trump a lot. Like, what about Donald Trump? And I always say, if you guys heard of the Midas Touch, like, what does that mean? And somebody will say, yeah, like you touch things and it turns to gold. And I always say, yeah, well, Donald Trump, he's got the shit touch. Everything he touches turns to shit. It's like the opposite of the Midas Touch. And people always laugh about that.
By the way, you see the forehead on this woman? Okay, I know it's people's looks, but seriously. Honest to God. Oh, man. I might mention Trump, I think, has been, probably just a little bit more successful than she ever has in her entire life. Denny says, pouring mashed potatoes on her ex-husband's head. Well, I can't disagree with her there. I'm a little jealous. I didn't do that to mine. Hold on. When Trump cursed, it was distasteful and inappropriate. Yeah, remember that? And yet you just saw her let into him. I mean, the S word is one thing, but she's been very fluid with the F word. Including F Trump, by the way. Did you see I love this guy. Did you see Marco Rubio? He had a one-day White House press conference gig, and it turned out a little chaotic, quite a bit funny, and surprisingly brutal. Well, add another job to Secretary of State Marco Rubio's ever-growing resume. Apparently that would be White House press secretary. He was behind the podium at yesterday's White House press briefing, taking on, for one day at least, the duties of Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She, of course, is on maternity leave. He entered the press briefing with a rather sheepish grin on his face, knowing he was likely about to be maimed into next week. And he walked out to give his first press briefing at the White House, adding to Rubio's resume. He slowly passed through the door, and that caused most of the press to actually laugh.
Okay. Hello. Thank you guys for having me today. I'll be filling in for Caroline today, obviously. So I'll have a brief remarks here, and then we'll get to your questions.
He looks nervous, doesn't he? And I frankly can't say that I blame him. Secretary Rubio kicked things off with a statement about Project Freedom, ongoing effort to restore the free flow of navigation through the Straits of Hormuz. The goal of the operation, said the secretary, is to rescue civilians who have been trapped inside the Persian Gulf. He added, not an offensive operation, it's a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless they shoot at us first. We're not attacking them, but if they are attacking us, if they're attacking a ship, then we will respond to that. Definitely an entire different vibe with Rubio behind that podium. Took the brutal swing at the UN. Do we have that cut? Yes, we do. Here, take a look at this one.
Some slight adjustments to the language, but I don't know if it'll avoid a veto or not, but the language isn't very complicated. And I think it's a real test for the UN, right? As a function, as something that functions that can solve global problems. What is the purpose of the UN? The UN was supposed to be a place where you could peacefully resolve global conflict. Right now, you have a country who is unlawfully, criminally, and illegally taking possession of an international waterway and blowing up commercial vessels and putting mines in the water. I don't know if people appreciate how outrageous this is, how unacceptable it is that any country would fire and try to sink commercial vessels or put mines in the water. Both of these things are illegal. And so we're going to take it to the UN, and we're going to give it another chance to be a forum in which we're not even asking people like commit troops to the region and help blow up the Iranian boats. All we're asking them to do is to condemn it, to call on Iran to stop blowing ships, to remove these mines, and to allow humanitarian relief to come through, because there's humanitarian aid that's trapped. That's it. This is a very modest request. And if you're telling me that the international community and hundreds of countries cannot rally behind that, then I don't know what the utility of the UN system is, if it can't even solve something as straightforward as that. And I think to both the Chinese and the Russians, I would argue and have argued that it is in their interest for that resolution to pass and for pressure to be brought on Iran, because it is in their interest not to see international waterways, including the Straits of Hormuz, be closed down and cause economic chaos to dozens and dozens of countries around the world.
Pro tip, Marco. The UN is a useless body of morons. Anyway, he did a great job. I don't know if he's going to be back for more than one day doing the job, but hope so. All right, what else we got going on here? Let's do this one instead. I think we got to move on to this. I love this story. It is the story of everything. Maybe you've heard of it. It hits at just the right time to boost America's faith resurgence. A new documentary pieces together the scientific case for creation with such clarity that even materialists find themselves without a rebuttal. The abrupt uptick of Gen Z men turning into the church in 2026, which is happening, could very well be foreshadowing a sea change in the age-old struggle between faith and reason. Charlie Kirk phenomenon becoming an age of AI deep fakes, COVID response, media gaslighting, ushered Christianity back to the table of public discussion. Kirk's way was inevitable. Prove me wrong, his campus visits begged. His popularity among young people was fueled by a quest for evidence that they'd been told to demand. But it came anew from Charlie's insistence that Jesus Christ answers questions that matter every day in very tangible ways. Who are you? Why are you here? How should you live? That which matters, that which really matters, is material and spiritual all at the same time. Now, Charlie's words stuck because for the past 200 years, the Academy's taken us on a very uncharted expedition towards a new societal destination, ostensibly with the evidence guiding the way. Science, after all, has become modernity's preeminent guide, not just for medicine or space travel, but for politics, human behavior, psychology, culture, so on. Along the way, our words have been transformed, including the very definition of science. Once, science simply meant knowledge about everything. Some knowledge was material, earthly. Some was metaphysical, heavenly. But post-enlightenment is what can best be described as materialism's crusade. Science emerged with a golden rule. Truth is limited to knowledge gained from our reason, using only observed evidence from the material world. Outside, banished from influence, was all that leftover domain of our faith. Faith, also a repurposed word, it came to mean your personal convictions about what couldn't be materially supported. Faith is science's impotent alter ego. Democratic liberalism, the political outworking of this materialistic view, now believed possible only because science keeps us a safe distance from religion. Very well, but what if the new science were to paint itself into a metaphysical corner with only one way out, a forced violation of its own golden rule? With science on the throne, Dr. Stephen Meyer and his team at the Discovery Institute took up the challenge, entered the courts, played by the rules, caught the materials in a conundrum that is absolutely unraveling their ruse. If COVID didn't convince us that science wasn't so objective after all, The Story of Everything, the film, will absolutely finish the job. Produced by Cypher Films, featuring a lot of scientists from the Discovery Institute, others from very well-known research in universities globally, this new documentary pieces together literally the story of everything with such beautiful graphic concision that you'll want to show it to anybody who really cares about science or reality. You may have heard some parts of this before, but not in this kind of rhetorically deep, unified package. It's a 3-part documentary that explains why the historic Christian view of origins is the hands-down favorite, without ever making that claim. Meyer's team plays the materialists game and beats them at it. In the first part of this show, The Story of Everything, they tackle astrophysics, chronicles attempts by mainstream physicists from Einstein to the present day as they strain to maintain their commitment to materialism. And try as they might, materialist theories after theories falls to the rather stubborn evidence. And by the end, some outside, uncaused cause can't be avoided. So much so that the materialists, perhaps without even realizing it, resort to their own faith claims. Maybe there's some multidimensional answer. Maybe there's infinite universities outside of our own. Universes, I should say. Maybe we're in a simulation. Everything has one thing in common. They are untestable by the materialist's own golden rule. It's a bait and switch. Christians were left in the penalty box for the very faith violation that science now requires for their theories to work. As is so often the case, science is guilty of even more outlandish claims than it holds and accuses religion of. This new science is grasping for a handhold, a foothold, anything to rescue it from the knowledge of God's necessary existence. Where a lot of other documentaries stop, The Story of Everything doubles down, moves through chemistry, biology, life, information, and onward. It gives form to a hopeful reality that nothing shows signs of being an accident. Our world teeming with meaning. Nature seems to beg us to see what materialism tells us, don't think about that. And now, just 6 months after the awakening brought about by Charlie's assassination, The Story of Everything is going to hit theaters, has hit theaters rather, April 30th. So it just wound up in the theaters. Very limited release, though. You'll be hard pressed to actually try and find a theater showing it, but please do look. Vanguard voice for classical Christian education, the ACCS, long prayed for a revival of faith and reason united in the pursuit of truth, laboring in more than 500 K through 12 schools to give students access to the truth of Christ in ways that matter. You might say it's a way that is material. Christians, I encourage you not only to go see this film, but take some friends, whether they're believers or not. Rendezvous afterwards, get a little coffee clutch going, have some conversation. Unlike a lot of other videos that seek this end, this film absolutely balances new depth with clarity that I don't think you've ever seen before. The Story of Everything hopefully will play a part, maybe like the concert master, for a symphony of sanity in our time. I would certainly hope so. I missed that last part. What movie? It is called The Story of Everything. It is opened up since April 30th, and it is extremely limited theater releases, so you're going to have to probably hunt for it. All right. Going to wind up with some guy who will amaze you. Frankly, I think he's probably got some sort of a reverb amp embedded in his throat. These folks have fascinated me forever. I do not know how they do it. I have been a voice artist for a good part of my career. I do different voices from everything from robots to Venus flytraps and the like. Seems lately, though, I've been doing a lot more of the old man roles, but that's fine. I'm an old man. Anyway, these guys are amazing, and if you watch this, it's all coming from this one guy's throat, including the lyrics. This is nuts.
Oh, 还有一个就是
Oh my God.
然后合在一起，你就可以。Give me that. All these Give me that. 学会了吗？
Unbelievable. I believe they were speaking Mandarin. They're probably Chinese, but that is insane. Wow. That's nuts. Danny says, thank you. My 9-year-old Luke wants to see the Michael Jackson movie. I'm wondering if it's any good. I'd absolutely love Michael. I'll see if the other one is showing in my area as well. I have not seen the new Michael Jackson movie. I have heard reports and seen reviews, and everything that I have seen said it is absolutely fantastic. So, based on that, I think I can highly recommend the new Michael Jackson movie also. I have not seen a bad thing at all about the film. So, go see it, tell us about it, and hopefully you'll find the story of everything too, which would be great. All right, thank you, folks. That's going to do it for us. Please, if you want to help support the show, use that PayPal link down there in the description. Hit the follow and the subscribe button. We really appreciate that. That's why we have that little bug over here that says follow, subscribe, just to remind you. And you're right, Danny. There's no doubt about it. He was absolutely innocent of anything anybody ever said about Michael Jackson, except that he was a great person, an amazing talent, and a protector of children, to be sure. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.